everybody. Welcome to the Lifetime Training Podcast. My name is Jason Stella, and I'm your host. And we have Mr. Tim Roberts, who is the Director of Science and Innovation for Theragun. Tim has had, several roles throughout the years. He worked for the Gatorade Sports Science Institute for 9 years, and then recently has moved over to Theragun in the last year to head up again their whole science and innovation. So welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Jason. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. We've had a couple of other podcasts with the group, and I'm ready to go real deep here, get into the science, the wonderful science behind, percussion therapy and Theragun, and how it's unique from everyone else, and hopefully give, the people out there some great tips on, what they should be using this for and why they should be using it. So if you wouldn't mind just starting by giving the group a little bit of your background of what you've done over the years, even at Gatorade Sports Science Institute.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Jason. So, I've been sports scientist is kind of my core, what I've been in my career, but with a background in strength conditioning, and then all the way through to nutrition, hydration, and kind of how do we optimize, kind of taking science and really making it available to athletes, accessible to athletes, and how we change their behaviors. So did that for 9 years with GSSI, and got the opportunity to work with a lot of great athletes from your high school to your professionals. And then moving over to Therabody this year, it was really about how do we build kind of a science division of the company where we're kind of continuing the great legacy they've got of innovation, ensuring that we have the scientific evidence behind it, and then ultimately, how do we help as many people as possible?
That's awesome. And, something we haven't talked about that might confuse people is there's Theragun and then there's Therabody. And the company's actually now, I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Theragan started obviously as kind of Dr. Jason was, and he kind of pioneered this kind of new tool, this new space, this new type of device. And as the company evolved and as kind of it's grown, the goal is to not only kind of stop there with that type of device, but to grow into other types of devices in what we might describe as this tech wellness space. And ultimately, to do that, Theragun that's kind of our core. But we really wanted to expand beyond that into Therabody, because we're looking at new ways. And obviously one of the core ones is Theragun, our CBD line, is how do we find basically natural ways, oftentimes with technology, to ultimately help people in their health, wellness, performance, recovery journey. And so that was really that transition.
Well, and that's awesome. And obviously we'll probably get into talking about the Wave Roller today too, which is a product that you guys have. And what I can tell you is thank you for the samples. I did take the CBD sleep, and I'll tell you what, that stuff works. Yeah, it was great. I felt great, and I woke up, not groggy, but maybe we dive into a little bit of that later. So, really, why don't we start with getting a deeper science? I know we've talked briefly about the science behind percussion, but if you can take us a little bit deeper on, why does this stuff work, and why is it such a great tool to use and have in your arsenal, both from a general population standpoint as well as a health and fitness professional?
Absolutely. We could, I could probably talk about this for 6 hours. So you'll have to cut me back a bit, but ultimately, for thousands of years, humans have kind of instinctively known that if you apply pressure to the body, or also if you apply vibration to the body, there's these therapeutic benefits. And kind of, you'll see that whether it's in ancient civilizations using types of massage, even in the ancient Greeks using devices that would help kind of create vibration. And so we've kind of known that. And then if we skip forward several millennia and we talk about what percussive therapy is, the scientific definition can really be described as the rapid and repetitive application of pressure to the body. And because of this rapid and repetitive application of pressure, your body and your tissues of the body are experiencing pressure and vibration kind of simultaneously for the first time. And it's really taking advantage of the mechanical kind of the evolution of mechanical engineering to be able to kind of create these new type of devices, these percussive therapy devices. So when we take the history and now we look at the science, so your body's experiencing pressure and your body's experiencing vibration. And then what occurs is you have both physiological responses to that and neurological responses. And it's these responses that the body's having, which we can kind of dive deeper into all of them, that causes the benefits that we might kind of perceive as kind of reduced soreness or improved range of motion or increases in kind of blood flow and activation of the muscles. But it's actually come from a physiological and neurological response to both pressure and vibration.
Got it. And so there's, some ways that I never even knew that you guys were using it. And I would love to kind of go into some of those, kind of tips and different things, and jumping right into, what is the difference between, I guess the various tips, how also is, the Theragun uniquely different than other percussive therapies. I mean, I've seen people literally put an attachment on a jigsaw and just start pounding people, and, why is that potentially not the best idea? And how does, that could potentially differ from, the Theragun?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think kind of let's start with that competitive landscape and kind of these people that are using all these types of devices, or these kind of knockoff devices that you see coming out and flooding your social media streams and that.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, I think what kind of anytime we do research in science, science can be quite a slow moving kind of process, and innovation can move a lot quicker. And what kind of we've done collectively as Theragan is Dr. Jason Stella really started Theragan kind of back in 2008. Kind of testing on himself, which I'm sure Dr. Jason's already kind of given the story.
Yeah.
And then he tinkered with different variables, and there's three variables: the torque that the motor delivers, the amplitude of the actual device, and the frequency. And so he was tinkering, trying to find the best combination of these. And kind of he did it from a very experiential, like, if I use this on me, if I use this on my patients, kind of what do I see, and what and kind of he ended up kind of right in the sweet spot. What's really great now is to go full circle and kind of bring the science to really complete that. And so kind of what we know now is that the frequency the frequency of vibration, which offers therapeutic benefits to the human body, a lot of that is centered around basically 20 to 60 hertz, and kind of that's what we see. Theragun's, it really operates at 40 hertz as our kind of core speed, right bang in the middle of that. When it comes to an amplitude, we've actually now done the research where we compared ourselves with our kind of one of our competitors, and we saw that kind of with greater amplitude, we saw actually larger increases in blood flow in the area that you treat, but also longer lasting when you compare it to a device of smaller amplitude. And then when it comes to torque, torque's fascinating, especially when you get into the engineering side, and we've got some incredible engineers that work in our product development. But if you want greater amplitude, you actually reduce the torque that you can have in the motor. And then if you reduce the amplitude, you can actually increase the torque further. And so what we've done is we found that kind of having 60 pounds of torque was kind of that sweet spot again, what you find in our pro device, where it offered the ability to apply pressure to the body for your professional athletes, kind of your linebackers in the NFL who carry a lot of lean mass, all the way down to my mom, who enjoys using Theragan and has used it from a rehab from an injury, but also general wellness. And that amount of torque offers the kind of the best of both worlds to everybody, but whilst maintaining the ability to have the frequency, which we know has the science to back it up in terms of therapeutic effects, and an amplitude which has been shown to have kind of better effects than competitors with lower amplitudes as well.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. And I don't think many people understand that. And, what Theragun ranges with regards to its, I believe it's the speeds, is what, is 1700 as a percusses per minute? Is that what it is?
Yes, exactly. So 1750 kind of percussions per minute, all the way up to 2400. And that 2400 percussions per minute actually reflects back to 40 hertz. And as a scientist, kind of 40 hertz is kind of that being, and then we kind of translate into what it is per minute to kind of for the consumer and for ease of understanding.
Got it. And so, thanks for that. And obviously I always say everything could be either a great tool or it could be a weapon. And, if you wouldn't mind diving into some, again, a little deeper around, how should we be using this, obviously, and what should we be using it on, as well as maybe what we shouldn't be. And, Dr. Jason mentioned some other areas we don't need to get into. I think it's common sense probably not to put them there. But yeah, so if you wouldn't mind going a little deeper there, it would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of set the scene and kind of backtrack slightly to one of your previous questions, attachments, kind of why do we have all these shapes and sizes? And I think it goes back to the science side of it, is they're all very purposely designed. That ultimately, once you alter the shape of an attachment, you actually alter the amount of surface area which is in contact with the body. Change of surface area results in the body experiencing either more pressure or less pressure.
Got it.
The other thing that we design is the density. So some have very soft, kind of low density, and some are very high density, much harder. Again, that changes the amount of pressure the body experiences, and ultimately kind of what that physiological and neurological response is. So then when we think of the size and we think of the design of the attachments, we're actually kind of directing it in, okay, how big is that muscle group that you're actually treating?
Mhm.
How sensitive is that muscle group that you're actually treating, and kind of what are the effects that you're trying to get. And kind of every single attachment that Theragun offers is kind of really designed around that basis. And actually, one of the things we get asked about the most is kind of a lot of the competitors have these fork attachments, kind of these two-pronged ones.
Yep.
And we never did, but we recently came out with the duo adapter. And the reason kind of we take that approach is ultimately with the fork, you see a lot of our competitors, you've got very high density plastic. You have got kind of a one size fits all approach, right? The distance between the two ends of that fork is the same no matter who you are, no matter how big your body is, how little your body is. With the duo adapter, what we created is we understood that, okay, well, if we purposely made all these other attachments kind of based on the anatomy of the body, the design of its surface area density, why would we detract from that purposeful design by just offering a fork? And so with the duo adapter, you now get to combine any of your existing attachments. So you get to vary basically, because of the size of it, you get to vary the distance between them. You get to vary the density of it, the surface areas which are in contact with the body, to really make it personal to you and your needs and your body. So that's kind of, taking a step back, that's kind of really a core difference when it comes to the attachments and kind of how we approached it. But to your point, where do you use it? When do you use it? This is the fascinating thing with the science. And so to talk about some of those benefits, well, one thing we know is this is a really interesting piece of science. If you apply vibration to an area of the body pre-exercise, and then you go do a real hard training session, you have eccentric muscle damage, and you get soreness, or DOMS as we know it. If that part of the body has experienced vibration pre-exercise, the amount of DOMS you experience and the biochemical markers of it, the functional outcomes of it, such as reduced range of motion things, are actually decreased.
So if you warm up with it the way, and we'll get into how specifically to warm up with it a little bit later, but you're saying that studies have shown that when you warm up with Theragun, that it can reduce DOMS and blood flow in just, parts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you know you're about to go do a heavy squat workout, and then you use Theragun on kind of your lower body and kind of especially kind of your hamstrings, which are going to have a high eccentric load, you can then ultimately reduce the amount of soreness that you experience afterwards, because those hamstrings experience the vibration stimulus from the Theragun. So that's one of the things. When you use it from a warm-up standpoint, we know we increase blood flow to the area. Increasing blood flow is one of the core things that we do, and why we warm up from a science perspective is increase temperature of the muscle. Same thing, same reason we warm up. And this next thing is we've shown that using your Theragun can increase both your passive. So if you're on a table and someone was assessing your range of motion kind of as a physical therapist, but also your active. So your personal ability to control that range of motion increases after using Theragun. So when we think about the way we exercise, the way we train, obviously we want to increase our mobility, the ability to control that range of motion. And it's just another reason why integrating it into your warm-up adds benefits to you.
Well, and that's going to be the question, that I've got to go a little bit deeper on is, obviously there's been a lot of science out that is showing, static stretching isn't the best to do prior to performance, because you may be lengthening the tissues forcefully in some static stretches, opening up range of motion. You might not be control, or it may shut the muscular tissues down. Obviously there could be that effect with the Theragun. So if you wouldn't mind diving into, what is the proper way to use it what hurts, what frequencies, because, again, the worst thing we could do is shut these muscles down. And if we're pounding on it, have you seen that it could shut the muscle down, if you're doing it wrong?
Yeah. So real simple analogy and way to do this is shorter durations have been shown to kind of improve what we might describe as activation of the muscle and preparation. Longer durations have been shown to almost, they'll relax the muscle and they'll kind of increase. And that, so what we want to do when it comes to warming up, stick it on, and this really comes down to the way that the different receptors in the muscle and the soft tissues react to it, and kind of the research on where you treat and how you treat. But basically go with high speed, so 2,400 percussions per minute. We're going to go with high pressure, so don't be afraid to kind of give it a little more. Like a lot of times you can get a lot of benefits from just floating it, but really feel like you can add a little pressure, whatever's your personal kind of threshold to what you can. you're going to treat for 10 seconds on what we describe as the origin and insertion. So either end of the muscle. So if we think about our quad, you're going to treat for 10 seconds kind of the top end of your quad near your hip. Then you're going to treat for 10 seconds kind of closer to the knee. And then you're going to treat for 10 seconds in the muscle belly. So anytime you're warming up, go attachment of choice, 2,400 percussions per minute speed. A little bit more pressure, feel free to kind of get in there, and kind of 10 seconds at the top end of the muscle, 10 seconds at the bottom, and 10 seconds in the middle. And I can go a little bit deeper in the science if we want to talk about why we do that as well, if you want.
Yeah, I would. But before we do that, so if you're going after a little bit more centralized spot, origin, insertion, belly, would it be better to use one of the attachments over the others, maybe the more pointed one versus the other, or what have you seen there?
Well, I think it goes down to the actual muscle group. So for if you're training lower body, we got large muscle groups. My personal preference is to go with something like the standard wall or the wedge, because you do have a little bit more surface area and you want to cover a little bit more surface area in the body. If we're talking kind of we're a little bit of a smaller kind of muscle group, such as the forearms, upper arms, for instance, if you're a weightlifter and you're looking to kind of improve your front rack position, for example, and kind of prior to lifting, then kind of get the smaller attachment out. Look at the cone or the thumb and kind of really target, but targeting the muscle in that way, but choosing the attachment for your body size, for your preference is probably the way to go for that.
So again, just to recap that real quickly, is higher percussive, so 2,400, keep it 10 seconds at the 2 attachment sites, and then the belly of the muscle. And that would be roughly in a little bit higher for pressure, just to kind of recap that for everybody. Correct? That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you wouldn't mind going into, the science behind, what you're seeing there and what happens and why that works. And let's stick to that warm up, and then we'll move generally through the other ways to go about it.
Absolutely. So, obviously, however you use the device, and we'll discuss these different ways kind of a little bit later, however you use it, you see increases in blood flow, which is one of the benefits to it. We see increases a decreased sensitivity to pain, decreases in soreness and the perception of discomfort. So no matter how you use it. But the reason we target like this in the warm-up is we have receptors in the soft tissues, scientifically referred to as mechanoreceptors. And there's many different types of these, and they'll respond to different amounts of pressure. Some will respond to pressure versus vibration. Some will respond to vibration. And then, so we're trying to target those mechanoreceptors very specifically. And so when we're targeting, very interesting from a research standpoint in vibration, there's been studies that have been done that shown if you apply it to the belly of the muscle, the center of the muscle, so if a frequency of movement occurs at the belly of the muscle versus the attachment sites, what happens to the way that basically it sends a signal up to your brain, and your brain's ability, the excitability of you then eliciting a contraction changes. And they found that if you actually, you can target the your tendon, so those attachment sites, we actually see an increase in that excitability. And so it still increases when you treat the muscle belly, but it increases further when you actually treat the attachment sites. And then also on top of that, they did another study where it looked at muscle length. So should you have that muscle stretched while you treat it? Should you have it shortened while you treat it and contracted? Or should you have it relaxed in kind of a mid state? And they found that it was best if you have it kind of relaxed in a pretty neutral length. So we've taken that research and then said, you know what, if we're, first of all, practically, you don't want to take a ton of time warming up. You want to kind of get in and get ready. But how do you translate from a science and a practical scope? And then really that 10-10-10, super practical, targets the areas we need, and we know it increases excitability and activity of the muscle more than treating it another way.
Yeah. And I've gone through other courses, manual therapy courses, and that was one of the ones that I went through, is all about attachment site palpation to help activate the musculature. So that's awesome, to be able to do that with the tool and kind of move it pretty quickly, that you've been able to see that. So let's kind of then, move into, okay, we've warmed up. I've heard, and Jason, Dr. Jason mentioned about working with the tool during, the workout itself, and maybe intra-set application. So if you wouldn't mind diving into the science behind that, and then also how do I apply there?
Yeah, absolutely. So As we all know, you can be in the midst of kind of like your sets, and ultimately you start experiencing fatigue. And so when we think about kind of we have central fatigue, we have peripheral fatigue. What is fatigue when you're kind of in the midst of your working sets within a training session? And that's really kind of like your buildup of kind of this metabolic environment you have in the muscle, and ultimately kind of just the kind of body trying to reset and get to a kind of what we describe as a resting level or homeostasis again. Blood flow is obviously, blood flow is the communication network of the body. It's kind of how we deliver, it's the transport network, how we deliver things to the area that we're working. It's how we transport all the crap we don't want out of it. And so what we know is that, okay, we increase pretty quickly, we increase kind of blood flow to an area by treating it. And so you've got all this kind of lactic acid building up. You've kind of, from a metabolic standpoint, you've got all this fatigue in that area. It's like, okay, well, how do we increase blood flow? How do we increase delivery of oxygen back to the muscle? How do we kind of increase the transport of carbon dioxide, other metabolic waste away from it? And so kind of, and that's that, and there's that side of it. The second side of it is kind of the fatigue you experience mid-set, kind of intra-set, is often perceptual. Like you're starting to kind of like get fatigued, you're thinking about it, the muscles, you can feel kind of, whether it's kind of the idea of the kind of pump, or whether it's the idea of kind of the burn, or whatever it might be. So there's a perceptual response too. And so we know that you can kind of decrease discomfort from it, and also kind of increase the perceptual kind of feeling of kind of readiness. So we know we're having a physiological effect. We know we're having this perceptual effect. So we're seeing kind of great benefits of people that will use it kind of in between sets to kind of really target those fatigued areas and kind of almost give them a little bit of a kickstart.
Got it. So, again, sticking with the same concept, we used it as a warm up, let's say it for prior to doing some squats or something like that on your quads. Now we move in intra set. What attachment sites? What's the pressure? Where do we go with it? I want to say attachment. I meant what attachments do you use? And then Are we hitting the attachment sites again? Or are we going belly? What are we doing there?
So we're working the muscles. We're not trying to kind of get them activated or prepared. We're really trying to target the muscle, getting as much blood flow to it as possible. So the goal is to sweep the entire area. Okay. Obviously, a focus on very much the center of the muscle belly, but really just a sweeping action across all of it. There's no need to target specific points this time. It's more about just sweeping, getting as much blood flow there as possible.
Go ahead.
No, you can't. Sorry.
No, and with that, I think a good point of what you said there is, obviously when they're sweeping, and I would like to get a little bit deeper on the proper way to do that. But if somebody hits a trigger point or a pain point, that and again, tell me if I'm wrong here, that's not the time in which you want to go deep after that trigger point is intraset, because I'm assuming that could shut the muscle down when you're going deeper into a trigger point, and then that could be a bad thing.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that kind of we're doing from an education standpoint, and what Therabody is really, we've started Therabody University for that exact point, is we have this incredible tool. It's super versatile. It can really meet someone's very individual needs based on their body, but also their training, the demands of their training as well. But also outside of that, like how do you use it for trigger points, or how do you do it from a movement intervention, or how do you do it to promote relaxation? And recently we just did a study on how it affects your sleep as well. And so, you're spot on. Intraset, the goal is not to target any trigger points, not to do that. It really is, let's just refresh the entire muscle. Let's sweep the entire thing. Let's use, for me, the goal of this, it's kind of 15 seconds sweeping it. And the goal of it is, because you want to do this as quickly as possible, really kind of sweep the entire area, and kind of really drive blood flow to it. It's use the biggest attachment you've got. But that also gives you the pressure that you like. I'm a wedge guy all day. I'll use a wedge for everything. The dampener is just not hard enough for me, but the wedge is big enough where I can got enough surface area to use it. So it's 15 seconds, sweep that muscle, ignore trigger points. The whole idea is let's just kind of hit refresh before you go into your next set.
Got it. And so, to go into the word sweep and what that means, is there, I've read in manual courses and massage courses, move, towards the heart or move away from the heart, and different things and how you're doing that. Do you have any recommendations on, specifically what does the sweep mean, and pressure to direction?
Yeah. So intraset, and this will kind of really kind of tie us into recovery next, but intraset, the sweep, literally back and forth, multiple directions. The goal is to cover the entire surface area of the muscle, really with the purpose of making sure that that muscle experiences pressure, rapid and repetitively, which ultimately causes the tissues underlying to experience kind of those deep tissues to experience vibration. That is the goal. So sweep back and forth, any direction to make sure you're covering the entire muscle. And you can use a little bit of pressure. Like the new Theragun 4th gen devices, the Pro and the Elite, they have that kind of pressure meter on them.
Yep.
So floating is pretty easy, right? It's just when that Theragun, that attachment is just touching the surface. When it comes to the warm up, when it comes to intraset, you can add a little bit more pressure, because the goal is really, we want to stimulate those different mechanoreceptors. We want to increase the blood flow, etc. And some of those mechanoreceptors that we're trying to stimulate both pre and during are some of those ones that are a little bit deeper in the tissues. And then, so kind of that's the sweep directions. If we want to shift now to go talk about recovery, that's when we might change the way we talk about the sweep. And so we're going to jump into that.
So is there, again, with muscle fiber direction, cross muscle fiber direction on the intraset, no real matter there?
No real matter there. Oftentimes it's anatomically, if you think you're treating your quads, it's much easier to go in that direction, exactly, to cover the entire muscle. It's a little bit awkward to go ergonomically to go side. But really, it doesn't really matter. It's more about covering that entire surface area of the muscle.
Got it. So now let's move on again, workout wise. This is saying general population working out. We warmed up with it. We're using the interset. And now how do we switch when it comes to post-workout kind of recovery and getting those people to feel wonderful once they get off the table?
Absolutely. And quickly, one last thing on intraset. That we talked about intraset, how to use it. The other way to use it in the workout is, some people like to warm, like say you got a full body split in your training session. You will use it to warm up the lower body first, and then you'll get in and you do your lower body training or whatever. And then mid workout, you might then go back to the warm up technique for your upper body before you go into it, rather than kind of doing everything at once. Some people will like kind of chop and change between kind of that like intra workout techniques versus the actual warm up as they kind of progress through that workout. So that's something to take note of.
Got it.
Recovery. So this is where we change it up a little bit. So from a recovery standpoint, we're trying to do a few different things. Again, increase blood flow, because we know that if we promote blood flow, we promote the delivery of nutrients. People might use this while they drink their protein shake, while they have their post-recovery meal. You increase the delivery of nutrients to the area by increasing blood flow, increase kind of metabolic waste transport away. But we're also trying to promote relaxation. Oftentimes, when you go through a heavy training session and you'll kind of, you might get in the car to drive home, but you kind of start to feel stiff. Your kind of muscles start to lock up. So we want to try and create that relaxation effect and kind of start what we might describe kind of, when we talk about the nervous system, a shift into the parasympathetic, where we're trying to really thinking about relaxation and recovery. And so the way we do that now is kind of a change in pace is, whereas we've been moving the device pretty quick, with a little bit more pressure, we're now going to shift and we're going to go to much more slow, deliberate use of the device. We're going to go really focusing on that floating kind of technique. And we are, to your point, going to focus on moving the device from distal kind of to proximal. So really working on that towards the heart. Promoting blood flow kind of like that. And then also from a lymphatic standpoint, a lot of times you talked about those massage techniques that you learn. It's about kind of increasing lymphatic flow. And again, using that device in that direction is going to only promote that, as well as increasing blood flow on that. The caveat and the reason why we go with lighter pressure on this particular technique is there's a type of mechanoreceptor, which is kind of very superficial, called Ruffini endings. And these respond to vibration. And these are one of the ones that can kind of promote that whole body relaxation, that kind of nervous system response, which really shifts us into the idea of recovery and relaxation, and also helps reduce tension of the actual muscle itself. So again, and this might be somewhere where we actually reduce the speed a little bit as well. So we could go to a lower speed of your choice, low pressure, let it float and really sweep towards the heart as you described, and that's the way we do it for recovery. That really ties back to the science and how we understand that this really is truly affecting the body.
And what was the time on that one? Did you say?
So for this one actually is we went 10 10 10 kind of 30 seconds. We went 15 seconds. This is the one where you can really start using it 60, 90, 120 seconds per body part. Kind of the idea, just kind of get that blood flow, get it moving, help relaxation and that. And ultimately the way especially when you train, if you got a full body split, you obviously, your entire body is getting worked. It's like, how do I choose? If I'm going to spend 2 minutes per body part, you could be there for an hour. It's like, people ask, like, how do you choose? And it's like, choose those large muscle groups that have done the most work, kind of focus on them as the priority. And then kind of as a convenience happens to be, like, this is the other side of it, is that most people can think of, and this is what I've spent a lot of time over the last kind of 5-6 years, people consider recovery to be this window that occurs straight after your workout. And we know that that is not the case. Recovery is this ongoing thing, which is happening all of the time. And so when we think of these recovery protocols, don't necessarily think of them as, oh, I have to do these, fit these in the next hour. It could be that if you're training every other day, it could be that you use this type of recovery technique the 24 hours after you train, because the goal isn't, again, the goal is to promote recovery. It's not to start preparing you for that next training session yet. So think of recovery and how to use this, and it doesn't all have to be done in one. You could use half your body at the gym, and then you can get home and do the other half of your body at home. It can be built around convenience as well.
That's great. So the other thing we've talked about, and we've got some great education that I've put together that we'll be sending out to all the trainers as well, is where the typical trigger points lie in the majority of the major muscles, along with where referred pain usually stems from having a trigger point there. Obviously, we're tapping now, starting to get into that grayish area of what's within scope and what's not. What I would love for you to discuss is with regards to, I guess we would call it corrective, and that's when we start tapping into trigger points that we're finding. One, how do we use it on a trigger point properly? And secondly is, when. Obviously, we've talked about it before. We don't want to do that kind of stuff before we're working somebody out. So is it recommended it's its own session, or is this more something that maybe we can hit in the recovery post, last 10 minutes of the workout, where we maybe set them down there? But recommendations that you can give, on, speed type of attachment, as well as the when and how when it comes to trigger point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, in terms of when, to me, it's ultimately when is a convenient time that doesn't disrupt from the training session, the way I would describe it. It could be another session itself. It could be in that recovery time. To me, kind of when I kind of working with athletes and working, whether it's Gen Pop or working with professional athletes, it's you want to be able to kind of maintain their focus, and you want to be able to maintain kind of their motivation for a training session. And if we kind of disrupt that by wanting to go treat a trigger point and kind of the focus on that, it can change it. So to me, that would be the goal. The science of it, you could probably do it anytime you want. Like you could treat a trigger point first in the way that I'll talk about, and then you could start using it as part of the warm up afterwards. So you really could anytime, but to me, it's all about how do we kind of separate those things and really kind of create a great training environment. So the really cool thing is that we actually worked with Dr. Edward Joe, or Eddie Joe at Cal Poly Pomona in his research lab, and he did an exploratory study for us on when it comes to active and latent trigger points, what does Theragun do to it? Does it help? Does it not help? And so we created a protocol, and basically the highest speed, 2400. As we know, this frequency has therapeutic effects for the body. You do have a very sensitive area naturally when we talk about trigger points. So go the dampener attachments. That's well, we now have the super soft, which is very, very soft if you had someone who's extremely sore, but the dampener is kind of that of the core group of original attachments. That's the softest one. So he went with that. And basically the treatment protocol that he did is he spent 5 seconds very statically on the trigger point. So it's 5 seconds static on the trigger point with basically floating. And then after those 5 seconds, it was a slow, deliberate circle around that area, around that trigger point. Then it was another 5 seconds with this time a little bit more pressure right on the trigger point. And then it was basically a 5 seconds of that kind of sweep across the entire area, followed by another 5 seconds sustained on it. So it was really
love that.
On it, circle it, on it with a bit more pressure, sweep, and then on it with a bit more pressure again. And so you're kind of providing that very targeted kind of treatment to the actual trigger point to try and kind of really get that muscle to, which might be in spasm or a lot of different kind of mechanisms of trigger points, target that, but also at the same time increase that blood flow to the area as well with kind of with techniques on that. And what's really interesting is obviously we have the difference between active and latent trigger points, and kind of we actually saw that with the latent trigger points where you don't get that spontaneous pain, but when you do all of a sudden kind of feel it, you're like, oh, that's actually the, and most people really suffer from that type of trigger point. That was the one where we really saw incredible improvements in pressure pain threshold. So how much pain after a single treatment like that, how much pressure it took to actually elicit pain dramatically increased. But also when applying different amounts of pressure measured in the lab to it, the sensitivity to that kind of dramatically decreased as well. So just a single treatment, kind of that kind of 5 seconds on, 5 seconds round, 5 seconds on, 5 seconds sweep, and then last 5 seconds on, we saw dramatic improvements in both perception of pain as well as pain pressure threshold.
Wow.
So it was really great.
That is fantastic. You know, I guess if there's a series of questions that you would suggest, you know, people ask either themselves or ask the client to make sure that the tool is right. Obviously there's things like neuropathy and different things like that, where you touch somebody with a gun and they're going to come jumping off the table. So what can you give us with like is there 3 to 5 questions you say, hey, let's ask these questions before we place the Theragun on somebody?
First and foremost, have they ever experienced it before?
Yeah.
That would be my go-to question. And then kind of, if not, before I dive into questions, it would very simply be giving them a brief, kind of showing them it, turning it on, turning it off, explaining to what it is to them, so they get to actually see it before we actually kind of put it on the body. And then ultimately it's kind of, first of all, do you have any kind of nervous system conditions? Do you have any neurological nervous system conditions would be my one question. Have you had any recent injuries, or do you have any kind of recent surgeries? So basically the nervous system one is allowing us to understand, okay, hey, is this person a good candidate for this? The next question, injuries or surgeries, is like, okay, is there any core areas that we need to avoid using this device on, or we advise against using it on? Most people, like, the great thing about the Theragan and percussive therapy is it's very targeted. So like if you've just had an ankle surgery, there's nothing stopping you using it kind of everywhere but around kind of that lower leg. And so there's almost always a case for that. So we've got kind of, have they used it before, nervous system, any kind of injuries or surgeries, and then do they have any sensitivities to pain or vibration that they've experienced elsewhere? I think those are kind of your kind of top 4. If you really were going deeper, and our education courses on Therabody University, and I can provide them to you as well, Jason, so you can kind of send them out to trainers. We have a list of basically precautions and contraindications, and so I'll be sure to send these out. Very comprehensive list. But because the other one is do people, like, you have to be very careful with individuals who have bleeding disorders, because if you are going to apply pressure to the body, even at very little amounts, or you actually can cause a lot of bruising. I'll be sure to send these out, but those would be kind of the core questions that I'd want to ask kind of prior to use.
Perfect. That's great. Is there anything else that you guys have been using the Theragun on that we have not discussed, or maybe hidden tricks, and things like that maybe people that have got a lot of experience using them versus people who are just starting out, you can share with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my core roles with the company is doing research. A pandemic really shuts down how you do research, because university labs shut down. So it was I had to get creative, and what we did is we partnered with BioStrap, a wearable technology company, and they have a division that they're just starting called BioStrap Labs, and the goal of that division is to validate other companies' products through science. And so they have a medical grade, clinically validated wearable that will heart rate variability, kind of nocturnal heart rate, kind of sleep, all those things that we know that all of these different wearable technologies do. They have their own. And so what I did is we as a team, we worked with their BioStrap Labs team. We recruited just over 70 athletes during the pandemic, Gen Pop, They had to exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time. And what we did is we measured them straight for 2 weeks with no intervention. They can do their normal life. They exercise the same way. They did their normal recovery behaviors, everything. Then what we did is we shipped out a device to them, and they had to do 2 things. They had to download our Therabody app, and they had to follow when they exercised, they followed the recovery routine for that activity. So if it was the run, if they went for a run, they would follow the run protocol. If it went for cycle, they on their bike, they could use the cycle routine. And then also they had to use our sleep routine in the 30 minutes before they went to bed. As with any research, you have a hypothesis that, okay, well, we know this affects the nervous system. We know this promotes relaxation. We know it does X, Y, and Z. Will we see anything? And every time you do research, there's always that risk you don't see anything. Yeah. I'm so grateful that we didn't do this research ourselves as a pilot internally, that we actually worked with an external group, because the results were almost too good to be true. And ultimately, from a statistical significance standpoint, we saw that 87% of the people in the study saw a statistically significant improvement in their sleep latency. So how quickly they're falling asleep. And that average was people and for those of you who are familiar, people take various times to fall asleep. Some people, lucky like myself, my wife hates me, it takes me 1 or 2 minutes and I'm asleep. Other people might take 30 minutes, but as a group, on average, the improvement was just over 4 minutes quicker. People fell asleep. And the only intervention was using that Theragan in the 30 minutes before bed and following the Therabody sleep routine that's found in the app. Yeah. The other side of it is that we did not only some acute testing. So if you're resting and then you use your Theragan on your entire body and you remain resting, what happens to heart rate variability? Because no one had ever done that before. We saw kind of improvements in heart rate variability from a single Theragan session. And obviously we know heart rate variability is kind of relationship to kind of the stress, readiness and stress, etc. So just a single treatments, we saw significant increases, statistically significant increase in heart rate variability. And overall as well, the other side of it with the sleep again is we saw statistically significant improvement in sleep disturbances. So how often people were kind of waking during the night also improved statistically significantly as well. So yeah, that's the other side of it. We have this tool where people associate it with kind of preparation for and recovery from training. And now we're starting to kind of branch out and we know, okay, well, we're modulating the nervous system in this way. And we start using it other times of the day, what is happening? And sleep was the big target for me as a researcher. And we now know that we actually, evidence-based, we improve parameters related to sleep. So that's one thing that people may not know about.
Wow, that's fantastic. And if people are watching, this will be the third one that we've posted. If they haven't seen the previous episodes or they're watching this one first, the new gun actually has a Bluetooth connection to help with the app. Can you go into that briefly and just kind of explain, how that can help, people use it properly?
Absolutely. So the best way to start, and I can say this as a scientist, is scientists are really bad communicators. We might do a whole bunch of research and we publish papers and only other scientists read them. We do a hard job of translating it, getting it into the people that it really matters. And so the clients, the members of the health clubs, the people we're training. And so when it comes to digital integrations and the way that Therabody thinks about, okay, why do you add Bluetooth to a device? And why do you add an app? The goal is really, how do we help more people? How do we educate them on the best way to use this, how to use it, when to use it? And so it wasn't, this is a gimmick, we should just throw Bluetooth in the device. It was like, how do we truly change people's lives? And people love apps these days. Digital applications are everywhere. So in creating the app and adding the Bluetooth device, it means that now we have a way of taking all the science we're doing, putting it into routines, making it super simple for people to use, and literally getting a step-by-step guide to it. If you please download the app if you haven't, it'll tell you, it'll control the speed of the device for you. So if we say warm up, like we talked about earlier, it'll set the device for you going at 2400. It'll tell you 10 seconds at A, 10 seconds at B, 10 seconds at C. If you click on the run, it'll target your lower body, tell you the muscles. It'll tell you those things.
Fantastic.
The timer will go if there's a grip change, because we haven't talked about that today. You have obviously the Theragan triangle, trademark design. If there's a grip change to help you reach areas of your body better, it'll prompt you. if there's an attachment change advising you, hey, we recommend this attachment, it'll pause your device, allow you to change the attachment, restart the device again, and it'll guide you through it. And the really cool thing, which I kind of was able to kind of help bring to life with the latest update in the app, is that if you do want to integrate your Apple Health, your Strava, your Garmin, these types of things, we'll actually take that data and we will actually use that to recommend which routines are best for you throughout the day, as this will be dynamic and changing, with taking numerous data sets. And ultimately the goal, going back to scientists suck at communication, we want to try and help our clients. We want to try and drive behavior change. Digital is one of the ways we can do that, to communicate with them, and that's kind of really the ecosystem we wanted to create with Bluetooth devices and the Therabody app.
That's amazing, and I've used it, and it is fantastic, and it's foolproof to being able to understand, where to use it and how to use it, and the proper pressures. I mean, I think that's cool too, is if you're hitting too hard, or less, the little bar doesn't show up. So that's fantastic. And that is complementary, meaning that comes when you buy the unit, the Therabody app, and those integrations are of no cost additionally, correct?
Exactly. And also, if you have one of the older Theragun devices, one of the kind of the second, third generations that don't have Bluetooth, you can still use the app. The app will still guide you through it. It won't have that Bluetooth connection, but it will give you all those instructions that you need, and you can actually kind of, it's well worth downloading.
And so, and to explain that a little bit deeper, is that with the newest model, it automatically will tell the unit through Bluetooth the right pressure and the right spots. So with an older unit, it'll obviously show you on the app the right spots, but you'll have to adjust pressure and make sure you're hitting those areas the right time. Correct?
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. Spot
That's
on.
awesome. Well, something else that you mentioned, and, if you can give any suggestion there, is, are you seeing people use the Theragun along with lotions? Obviously you mentioned CBD, things like that, to help, whether it be any of the things that we've talked about, and how is that integration coming together?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our Theragun CBD line was kind of really built around the same premises as what Theragun is how do you help people and do it naturally? But taking our learnings from Theragun is that the type of product from a CBD standpoint you might want to use prior to an activity, whether that's going for a hike with your family, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's preparing your body for, like, if you're in a job that has kind of physical demands, the type of product you might want to use there is very different to the type of product you might want to use from a relaxation recovery standpoint. And so we have, from a topical products, we have our Activate, and we have our Recover lotions. And then some people use CBD very specifically around kind of ailments that they have. And again, the Revive is basically a focused CBD product from a balm standpoint. And collectively, when we think about the different CBD products that we have, the other side of it is that the other ingredients, the other active ingredients that were kind of being used, kind of complementary with the CBD and the full spectrum CBD, are really, again, purposefully included, whether it's heating and warming or whether it's cooling, to elicit the effects. So then that whole Theragun line translates. Like, if you're someone who kind of struggles to kind of motivate themselves, get prepared, warm up thoroughly or whatever, the Activate is not only has kind of the effects of CBD, but the other ingredients in terms of warming. And then you can use that prior to then using you can use that lotion at home, drive to the gym, use your Theragun when you get to the gym as part of your overall holistic approach to warming up. Same with recovery. Use your device while you're at the gym or at home, and then also kind of apply that kind of those other products as well. And I think the really great thing is that the attachments are all closed cell, non-porous foam that we use. So you're not gonna start absorbing all of the Theragun kind of products into those attachments as well. So people are using them a lot kind of together as well.
That's fantastic. Well, I think, rounding this thing out is, what can you give us? You mentioned hand positions and the uniqueness of the structure of the Theragun. And, I can say from using competitors that maybe it's just a long rod, mine even busted, my other one, not the Theragun, because of how I had to hold it and that kind of end popped off it. But can you go into why the design, and then, how you can use in the preferred positions of using this, whether it's on yourself or maybe trying to get into the low back or areas that are kind of behind you? Anything you can give us there?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of two things when it comes to using the device that you want is you don't want to be tensing the area and like really contracting the area that you're treating at this kind of. So if, for instance, if I'm trying to treat my kind of right trap and I'm holding the device in my right hand, I am automatically elevating my scapula using my trap to get there. And what we know from the research is if the muscles in a neutral length relax, you have greater effects. So we needed to, the design really came about is how do you treat basically 95% of your body by yourself, and how do you do it in a design that allows you to reach these areas and basically kind of opposite sides of the body. So for instance, if I'm treating my left trap, I use my right hand. If I'm using my right trap, I use my left hand. So first things first, think about the muscle that you're treating. Is it contracted? Is it tight? Or are you able to kind of because of the way that you can use the four distinct grips on the Theragun triangle, are you able to maintain a posture which allows you to relax, keep that muscle relaxed throughout the first treatment? Kind of that's the first thing. Second thing, whether you're treating yourself or whether you are a kind of practitioner, whether it's a medical practitioner, physical therapist, athletic trainer, whether you're a massage therapist, if you're providing treatments to other people and you're doing it a lot, the other thing is that your forearm and your wrist will get kind of taxed and pretty fatigued if you have a very kind of hammer-shaped device and you're having to manipulate your body. Yeah. What happens is that the triangle design allows you to kind of maintain the integrity of your grip, your ability to your forearm and your wrist to be able to treat all these areas of the body and reach it without kind of really kind of getting your shoulders, your forearms, your elbows into some weird positions. And so I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to like treating places like your lower back. They're pretty awkward. The reason you find we have recommendations in our app, and I definitely go check those out in terms of the grip and which areas of the body they're best for. But I see a lot of people do very individual things. You have three sides of a triangle to grip with your thumb through, your fingers through, upside down, the right way around, the end. Experiment, and ultimately you'll find the right grip for you when you treat it. Me personally, I love the base grip, holding it on the bottom. Like I was deadlifting 2 hours ago in my garage, and I can hit my calves, I can hit my hamstrings, and I'm basically almost stood up straight. I'm really not having to sit on the floor, lie on the floor, or do anything. It's a really, really great design element that's kind of come out in kind of in the way our devices are used.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough. Is, anything else that you wouldn't mind, sharing with the group or that you have? I mean, obviously I think we're going to have you guys on some more with some of the other products that you guys have, but I really appreciate, the depth of the organization first and foremost, and the layers of education and distribution that you guys have, and just your willingness to really help people, and your passion to help people learn how to use this, both if you're a person that's applying it onto somebody else or yourself. So I can't thank you enough.
No problem. It's what everybody's about. It's how do we help people, and how do we ultimately meet them at their needs, and provide both products and education that kind of give them what they need the most. The thing I'd leave you with is when your staff, the trainers, kind of the professionals using these devices, when you think about them, I think ultimately think about two things, like especially in the training environment. What are the needs of the individual? Do they have pain, discomfort? Do they have movement dysfunction? That's the first thing. What are the needs of the individual? And then what are the demands of the training? And you have a device which literally can be used to meet every single one of those things, both the needs of the individual, the demands of the training. You have obviously the expertise of the staff, the experience of them. They can take those two things. That you asked me earlier, what questions would you ask? After asking the questions about, hey, is this safe to use on you? The next questions are like questions that are designed to identify your needs. Whether like you may be someone that you've done a movement screen on, you may have done that. It may be something you just kind of chat to them about. You know what? Like my lower back's a bit sore today. Like I've been driving a lot the last 2 days. Take those individual needs, take the demands of the training, and integrate the tool in accessible, convenient ways, and that's when you see the most success with it.
Man, that's awesome. And I can't thank you enough for, again, your time and the whole group's time. And I look forward to, doing this again in the future and continually communicating with you. There's going to be a lot coming out, from articles to additional education, obviously these podcasts, to help both the member and the team members be able to use these and hopefully grab, one from yourself. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was great fun. And the hour went by quick.
For sure. Thanks again. All right. I want to pause. We are recording, but I want to edit something. One thing here, let me pause this. One thing that we didn't touch on is, and we don't have to do this, we could do this a different time if you want, is there a difference? Let me pause this.
Yep.
All right. So one of the other questions I've got is, obviously there's different tools, that range in price and size. The mini is fantastic. I absolutely love that thing. But if you wouldn't mind going over the differences between them, so people know which is the right one for me, and what am I gonna get for the different models that you have.
Absolutely. So obviously we can start at the top, the Pro. So basically the Pro device, it's basically has the head or kind of is rotating. So again, it adds another layer.
So this one is the one that adjusts like this too as well, correct?
Yep. Give you another
exactly,
another added versatility in terms of being able to target more areas of the body. It also comes with more attachments, and it also has got the greatest amount of torque. So really, when we think about the device, it's the one device that really, if you're a 350-pound power lifter versus if you're kind of a 120-pound girls high school basketball player, you really have a device which really meets all of your needs, from the attachments to the design of it to the amount of pressure you can apply with it. So that's kind of the top of the range. As you come down, the Elite's next, so it doesn't have the adjustable arm. Still comes with a lot of the attachments, not quite as many as that. And the Elite is going to be whereas the Pro is more targeted towards kind of these commercial settings, kind of giving you everything you need, kind of wear and tear of someone using it a lot when they're training and kind of throwing it around. The Elite's more kind of like driven around your kind of at home, kind of wellness, a tool that can be taken to the gym again. And it's slightly quieter than the Pro. Going down again, the Prime. The Prime personally might be my favorite. The Prime is just a really, really solid product. It's again, it's same. The mechanical kind of like the amplitude, the frequency are the same across the top three, and the torque goes a little bit lower each time. So if you are kind of someone who wants a lot of pressure, wants to really dig into those areas and those muscles, you want to probably go with the Pro, but the Prime still does a really great job of it. And then, so those are our kind of core three that have the Theragun triangle design. Moving out of that, now we have the Mini. The Mini is an incredible product. It has less amplitude, so it just has a little bit lower amplitude, but still packs a punch. And the way I would think about the Mini is the convenience factor. This thing lives in my golf bag. Yep. Use it for preparation.
My son had it there too. Yep.
Yep. And I would look at it as just being super convenient to get the benefits of what you can from Theragun percussive therapy in a super portable device. If you're a professional athlete, if you're very serious about your training, it's not going to be the one that is kind of the best for you, but it will give you kind of some of those effects, and it will be a useful tool that you could keep leaving your car, et cetera, et cetera. But so I think that really speaks to kind of all of them. And I think the cool thing is that when we think about the benefits of it, increased blood flow, kind of preparation, whether it's decreased soreness, all those therapeutic benefits, when we think of it, because all of them will elicit it. And it's just kind of finding the right product for you.
Got it. Well, this has been fantastic, and I really appreciate everything that you've been able to share with us. And obviously, I think there was some amazing, very great specific take homes that people can actually use, right here, right now, to get better after listening to this or listening to it a few times. I also know that you have the Therabody University, and a place where people can go if they really want to go even deeper. And would you mind just kind of explaining quickly of, what are those particular, things, and what are those courses? And then, we obviously could put the links, and obviously all the trainers, at Lifetime get a slightly better opportunity to, from a cost perspective, to be able to get through these courses.
No, absolutely. I think Theragun, as kind of the pioneers of the space, they recognize the need that if we really truly want to help as many people as possible through this product, we need to make sure we educate the right people. And educating the right people not only is about educating the consumer, but prosumers, providing professional education to those people that are really kind of using it on the front lines. So Therabody University was kicked off earlier this year. And you go to Therabody.com. You'll see an education tab right at the top of the website. Click on that. You can click through to our Therabody University landing page. And at this point in time, we basically have 4 professional education courses. One is just called our Foundations. Let's talk about the history of percussive therapy, where it came from, like some of what we talked about, the history of vibration and pressure. Get to know the devices a little bit more, and kind of how it can help your body. It's like an hour-long course. Then what's really incredible and a first for the industry is that we now have 3 science-backed courses that are targeting what we describe as performance specialists. So this is strength conditioning coaches, personal trainers, anyone working in that, what I would describe personally as a training environment. So we have a 4-hour live virtual course. We'll be offering live again when things open up again, but we also have a digital version, which my colleagues will kill me, but I believe it's around 2 hours in the digital version, or 4 hours live virtual. We have licensed massage therapy. So if you're a licensed massage therapist, how do you integrate Theragun into your massage practice? How's it best for the clients? What does a standard of care look like? And kind of tips and tricks for that, and actual routines. And then lastly, medical practitioner course. This is aimed at your physical therapists, at your athlete trainers, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons. We have this new modality which offers medical benefits as well from an interventional intervention basis. How do they integrate it into different kind of treatment protocols, rehabilitation, prehab work, things like that? And so Therabody University was like, how do we take this science that we're working so hard, and how do we really make it accessible, but translate it in a very practical way? So yeah, I urge you, as many people as possible, check out Therabody University. There isn't another platform like it in terms of education for these types of devices.
Beautiful. Well, I cannot thank you guys enough. And I love our partnership with you guys, and hopefully we continue to move this thing forward and help you guys, and so we can help, our trainers live healthy and happy, and kind of what our tagline is, the healthy way of life. So thank you so much again.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Jason. Looking forward to doing it again.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You too.